For decades, America set the rules for world trade. Then, China launched a project worth $1 trillion designed to rewrite them. This initiative is not just building railways and ports, it is shifting entire economies, and it is threatening to end US dominance for good. But the most critical consequence, and the real reason so many governments are alarmed, lies hidden in how quickly global power can change hands. The story begins with a risk Western leaders saw coming yet chose to ignore. Northwest Sumatra sits at the edge of one of the world's most restless plate boundaries. Here, the Indo-Australian plate presses against the Burma microplate, grinding forward at 6 centimeters each year. This slow-motion collision builds up strain for decades, sometimes centuries, until the Earth suddenly gives way. The region forms part of the vast Ring of Fire, a belt notorious for its earthquakes and volcanoes, yet the Indian Ocean coastline lived with a sense of calm. Local communities fished, farmed, and built villages along the shore with little awareness of the forces moving beneath their feet. While scientific journals and hazard maps documented the potential for a giant rupture, those warnings rarely traveled beyond academic circles. The last massive quakes in this area, 1833, 1861, and 1881, were buried in old records, their stories forgotten by the generations now living along the beaches. No tales of killer waves haunted local memory. Without recent disasters to anchor risk, people built homes, hotels, and markets close to the water, trusting the ocean's familiar rhythms. The silent danger remained, unseen, unremembered, and unprepared for, waiting beneath the calm surface for its moment to return. At 7:58 in the morning, the seabed off Sumatra convulsed. A rupture began deep beneath the Indian Ocean, ripping open a fault line that stretched for nearly 1,600 kilometers, longer than the distance from London to Rome. Over the next 10 minutes, the Earth's crust shifted as much as 18 meters in places, heaving the seafloor upward by several meters. The sudden displacement forced billions of tons of water skyward, unleashing a series of waves that radiated outward at speeds approaching 800 kilometers per hour, faster than a commercial jet. The energy released in those minutes matched the explosive force of 23,000 Hiroshima bombs. That energy did not just stay beneath the ocean, it set the entire planet trembling, nudging Earth's axis by more than 2 centimeters and shaving almost 3 microseconds off the length of the day. With the rupture complete, an invisible countdown began. Across the Indian Ocean, the waves raced toward coastlines packed with unsuspecting families, fishermen, and tourists. Thailand's beaches would face the first impact in about 2 hours. Sri Lanka had slightly longer, 2.5 hours. On the far side of the ocean, Somalia's shores would be struck 7 hours after the initial rupture. Now the ocean itself was the only warning, and time was running out. Inside UNESCO's Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, the conversation about tsunami risk rarely left the Pacific. Meeting records from the 1990s and the early 2000s show a steady stream of reports on seismic hazards, but proposals to expand warning coverage to the Indian Ocean were routinely left in the margins. The Pacific Tsunami Warning System, funded and upgraded after the 1946 Hawaii disaster, had decades of support from the US, Japan, and other Pacific states. By contrast, the Indian Ocean remained an afterthought, acknowledged as vulnerable but absent from budget lines and operational mandates. Documents from those assemblies revealed that technical capacity was not the obstacle. Seismic networks and tide gauges already proven in the Pacific could have been extended to cover the Indian Ocean. Yet each time the issue arose, it was tabled for further study or deferred as a low priority. National agencies like NOAA and Japan's Meteorological Agency focused their resources on domestic and Pacific needs. Their budgets, controlled by national legislatures and ministries, made no provision for Indian Ocean expansion. Proposals for global warning systems never advanced beyond working groups and feasibility studies. No country stepped forward as the first mover to fund a regional center, and no coalition of Indian Ocean states pressed the issue with enough force to break the inertia. The absence of a warning system was not the result of a single veto or dramatic rejection, but of years of institutional neglect. Budget controllers in major donor states saw little strategic or economic incentive to invest in a region considered peripheral and low risk. The result was a paper trail of missed opportunities, agenda items shelved, pilot projects unfunded, and warnings left to collect dust in committee reports. The science was clear, but the political will to act never materialized. Along the shores of Sri Lanka and Thailand, the pursuit of profit left little room for caution. From the 1980s onward, hotel chains and local investors transformed fragile coastlines into strips of luxury resorts, flattening dunes, clearing mangroves, and pushing construction ever closer to the water's edge. In places like Hikkaduwa, Unawatuna, and Phuket, beachfront hotels rose within 20 meters of the high tide, often in open violation of setback guidelines. Natural barriers that once slowed and softened the force of the ocean were sacrificed for sea views and direct beach access. Tourist brochures promised paradise and omitted any mention of seismic risk. Local officials and business leaders, wary of scaring off visitors, discouraged visible hazard signs or evacuation drills. The idea of a deadly wave seemed remote, bad for business, best left unspoken. When the tsunami struck, these choices proved catastrophic. In Indonesia, more than 170,000 lives were lost, entire communities in Aceh swept away. Sri Lanka recorded around 35,000 deaths, many in coastal towns where mangroves and dunes had been replaced by hotels and shrimp farms. Thailand's Andaman coast, famed for its resorts, counted nearly 8,000 dead and missing. Half of them were foreign tourists. The waves spared few in the exposed zones, and where natural buffers remained, damage and casualties were measurably lower. As the scale of devastation became clear, a new player stepped forward. China dispatched relief flights and medical teams within days, pledging tens of millions in aid for Indonesia and Sri Lanka. Beijing's rapid, visible response was more than charity. It was a calculated gesture, earning goodwill and access in a region long shaped by Western and Japanese influence. In the years that followed, Chinese-funded reconstruction projects and infrastructure deals multiplied across the Indian Ocean rim. Disaster diplomacy had become a tool for reshaping alliances, built on the ruins of profit-driven risk and institutional neglect. Kostas Sinolakis, a leading voice in tsunami research, has called the 2004 Indian Ocean disaster a preventable tragedy. He points to a world where the necessary technology already existed: seismic sensors, tide gauges, and international protocols for warning systems. Yet, as Sinolakis notes, the absence of political will left millions exposed. We had the science, we had the tools, he says. What we lacked was the commitment to act. Fumihiko Imamura, who has studied tsunamis from Japan to Indonesia, underscores that even the best systems are not foolproof. In 2011, Japan's own state-of-the-art warning network failed to save thousands when the Tohoku tsunami overwhelmed coastal defenses and evacuation plans. Imamura warns, tsunamis are low-probability, high-impact events, complacency kills. Both experts agree warning systems depend on more than machines. They demand public education, regular drills, and respect for natural warning signs. The lesson from 2004 and again from 2011 is clear. Technology alone cannot guarantee safety. The gap between knowledge and action remains perilous. Across the globe, more than 300 seismic sensors and deep ocean buoys now form a vast early warning network designed to catch the first signs of tsunami waves. Artificial intelligence scans data from satellites and ocean floor monitors, aiming to deliver alerts in as little as 5 minutes. Yet, even with these advances, the world's exposure has never been greater. Over 700 million people now live in coastal zones vulnerable to tsunamis, many in cities where evacuation could take hours, not minutes. Jakarta, Mumbai, and Manila each hold millions within reach of a single destructive wave. New smartphone alert systems promise safety, but experts warn that digital warnings can foster a false sense of security if people do not know how to act. The next threat may not even come from an earthquake. Underwater landslides, invisible and unpredictable, could unleash waves with almost no warning at all. For all the progress in detection and response, the stakes keep rising and the margin for error grows thinner every year. Today, more than 150 countries are tied to China's $1 trillion Belt and Road Initiative, reshaping trade, debt, and influence worldwide. As geopolitical lines are redrawn in real time, the future of global power is no longer decided in Washington alone. The world is watching and recalculating.